Hey guys, and welcome back to the dashboard series. So before we get started in this video, I just want to point out an error that I made in the previous video. So the minimum of the list months is actually 1. So I had plus 12 here, which actually made that 13. So it should just be plus 11, which will take it out to 12, which should correspond to the month of December. So just go and fix that up if you didn't already pick up on that when I did it. So we'll move on in this video. So in the last video we got our control panel done. So what we're going to do in this video, there's 3 little mini containers up here that get populated when you click these years here. So one was for written premium, one was for claims, I think, or we'll have a look at it in a second, and one was for sum insured. So we'll build them in. A loss ratio comparison graph will go here. And you can't scroll down any further at this point in time, but below the loss ratio comparison graph and the control panel, we'll have the claims distribution graph and the sum insured distribution graph. So we got a bit to cover, so we'll get into it. So starting below here, at this point where we finished off in the last video, we'll put a div, and we'll come in here and we'll put another div. Whoops. And another div. Alright, so in here we'll go html.h6, and we just want to give this an ID at this point in time. And we'll call it premium text, so that's referring to the insurance premium. And we'll go html.p here as well, and we'll put a string here and we'll call it aggregate premium. And outside here we'll give it an ID called just premium. We'll give it a class name, and that's just going to be mini container. And we'll do a little bit of styling here as well, and we'll give it a width. And sorry to be so specific here, but we're going to go 194 pixels, and we're going to go text align, and that's just going to be center. So moving outside of that one, we're going to have another div, and in this one we'll go another h6. This one's going to have an ID of claim text, html.p aggregate claims, and come outside here, ID, call this one claims, class name, mini container, and we'll style this one again. Oops. And we'll have a width 194 pixels again, and our text align center. Okay, so we'll keep moving here, and we'll have another div down here, and h6. So again, it's getting pretty repetitive, but as I said, it's when you got a fair bit to take in, sometimes it's just nice to see some familiar code, so it really sinks in. So we'll call this ID sum insured text, and when you're doing this sort of work, there's always going to be repetitive aspects to it when you need the same structure over and over again. HTMLP, and we're going to call this one aggregate sum insured. Give this one the ID of sum insured, class name, mini container, and style. .194 pixels and text align center. Okay. So if we come out here now and we give this an ID and we just call this info container and we give it a class name, row, container, display, save that, come and have a look. So as you can see here, there's these three little containers that we just generated, and when we build the functionality into our dashboard in a later video, when we select the 2017 year, that's going to feed into these containers, so it's going to give us the aggregate premium for 17 aggregate claims and aggregate sum insured. And if we went 17 and 18, so if we select multiple, it's going to give you 17 plus 18 premium, 17 plus 18 claims, and same for sum insured. So that gives you a bit of an idea what we're doing there. Now, once we've done that, we come down here and we'll go html.div and we go DCC and we're going to enter graph here. So we're going to put our first graph in and we're going to go ID, and this one is our loss ratio graph. And then, whoops. And if we come out here, go ID, we go loss ratio container here, and a class name, and we'll call it a pretty container. And then down here, another ID, we'll call this right column, and our class name is going to be 8 columns. So we save that there. Come back over here. So that's our graph. Obviously we want it up here, so but that's what it'll look like. So a graph with these little containers above it. So we have our 8 columns there. We come down here and this is how we'll do it. So we'll go class name, and that's going to equal, and we have row, and then flex dash display. Save that, come back into it, refresh it, and there we go. So we've got our containers here and our graph there, and we want 2 more graphs that go across the page down here. So we will start doing that. And the way we do that is we go html.div, another html.div, then we go DCC graph, so whoops, another graph obviously. We'll give this one an ID and we'll just call it severity graph. And then give it a class name. We go pretty contain, whoops, it's a string, we'll go pretty container, and we'll go 12 columns here. And then we'll have another one, we'll go html.div, DCC graph, ID, this one is our sum insured graph, and again we can just go class name, string, pretty container, and again 12 columns. And then outside it all, so that pretty much wraps up our layout. All we got to do now is we just got to go ID here, and we'll just go main container and just some style here. Whoops. Go display, and we'll go flex and flex dash direction. We go column. So refresh our page and we'll have a look at it. So we've got obviously our header row where we started. We've got our control panel. We've got our little containers, which this control feed into. We've got our loss ratio graph, which this control and the slider. So the drop down of the slider, that'll feed into this graph. This drop down here will feed into this graph, and this final drop down here will feed into the last graph. So that gives us the structure of our dashboard. It's starting to look pretty good. We obviously just need to populate these graphs and containers with some data now. So we'll start by building the functionality because we've already imported our data. So we just need to build the functionality which essentially links our data to the layout here. So I hope this one was helpful. Give the video a thumbs up if you thought it was. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in the next video.